Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365, and remember to subscribe to youtube.com/Raiders Report. Why? Because if you want to get on the show, if you want to be on Raider Nation Rumors, which is about to come up, this is what you got to do. You got to subscribe down here, youtube.com/Raiders Report. It's the #1 channel on YouTube for Raiders fans. Go tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word. Let's grow the channel. All right, Raider Nation Rumors, this first one coming up, and it's a good one. It's around my man Michael, and I already gave Michael a little bit of credit on my Raiders Rumors segment, and he asked me, Gareon Conley, a top 10 cornerback, or that's his rumor. Gareon Conley's a top 10 cornerback. This one's 3 Chucky heads to me, and I think it's pretty likely, and I really wanted to give it a little bit more. Since his benching in Week 6, he's been great, and he slowed down Tyreek Hill and Antonio Brown. I think you could argue that Antonio Brown is probably the best receiver in the NFL. Now, he does rank top 5 in passer rating allowed, and since that benching, he's just been an absolute stud. This season, though, when you look at the entire picture, he's got 32 tackles, 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and then 1 touchdown. He's been an absolute stud, but I really want to put more emphasis on what he did against Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, before this game, seeing about 11.25 targets, 6.75 receptions, 86 yards, and then a touchdown every single game. That's his average. And Gareon Conley just stepped on the field against probably the best receiver in the NFL and was like, nah, man, I'm not going to let you see the ball. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 35 yards. If you would have told me that Gareon Conley was going to shut down Antonio Brown for 5 catches and 35 yards back in Week 6, I probably would have taken off my headset, maybe more than that, and walked right off this stage. So, I want to know from you, Raider Nation, is Gareon Conley a top 10 cornerback in the NFL right now? Give me a heart for yes or a like for no. If you're on YouTube, comment yes or no. Next Raider Nation rumors coming in here from my dude Chris Rubio. Shout out to you, Chris. I appreciate the amount of rumors that you submit. It's actually kind of sickening at times. And here's his: Marquette King is going to return to Oakland in 2019. I really wanted to say tuck rule, tuck that, but I guess there's a 1% chance of this happening. So I'll say 1 Chucky head, small shred of truth. He was released by the Raiders this offseason in 2018, and he just did not get along with John Gruden. But he was signed with the Broncos, but then he was shortly cut October 8th. He averaged 44.1 yards per punt, which was a career low for him. When I look at Marquette King, this just makes no sense really for me for the Raiders to bring him back. Maybe there's an injury or something happens, or Marquette's like, you know what, I'll play for free. Maybe then they'll decide to bring him back. But in terms of him getting along with the locker room, I just don't really see it happening. But this is where I want to ask you. Should the Raiders bring back Marquette King? Now, listen, he was a fun guy to watch. I liked his dancing antics, and he was really good for the Raiders. But at the end of the day, I think Gruden got rid of him for a reason. So, type Y for yes, type N for no. Should the Raiders bring back Marquette King? Shout out to BetDSI for sponsoring today's Raiders Report and hooking us up with the best promo code on the internet. You see that promo? Live120. It's for 120% deposit bonus. You're going to go to chatsports.com/bet. That's chatsports.com/bet and use that promo code Live120 for 120% deposit bonus. I'm telling you, it's the best promo code on the internet. In fact, I challenge you to find a better one, and you're not going to be able to. So shout out to BetDSI for hooking us up here at Chat Sports. Next Raider Nation rumor is from Alexander Gomez. And Alex, first tip, pro tip, change your avatar. It drives me nuts when I see eggheads. And his rumor is sign Jay Ajayi in 2019. This one's 1 Chucky head for me, and I don't think it's very likely. Now, Jay Ajayi, I think when he first came out at Boise State, he had a lot of hype, but we knew he had the knee issues, and without the knee issues, he would have went a lot higher in the NFL draft. He's going to be a free agent, though, in 2019, and with Marshawn Lynch possibly retiring, I think Marshawn's almost definitely going to retire in 2019. Maybe they could sign Jay Ajayi. But he tore his ACL in Week 5 versus the Vikings and just has a slew of knee injuries. And even when you look at this year in his production, he played in only 4 games, so 45 carries, 184 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 touchdowns in Week 1. But realistically, the dude's had 3 really good games in his NFL career when he ran for over 200 yards, twice against the Bills. And, I think Jay Ajayi is a good running back, but when you look at the injuries and everything going into it, I don't really know if I'd personally want him. But this show isn't about me, so would you want the Raiders to sign Jay Ajayi? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no, type 3 for Chris Warren, because I love me some Chris Warren. Next Raider Nation rumor coming up here on the board is from Venomous poison. And that may be the most horrifying picture, minus the picture Tom sent me yesterday. Raiders assigned Earl Thomas in 2019. Another Earl Thomas rumor, but of course, I love doing them. So, well, I don't love doing Earl Thomas. That sounds weird. Okay, get into the rumor. One Chucky head, small shred of truth. Now, we already saw a report that came out that John Gruden loves Seahawks players, and it came out right before the Raiders ended up playing the Seahawks in London. And he also said that he wants more Seahawks players. We know Earl Thomas is a free agent in 2019, but he fractured his leg versus the Cardinals in Week 4, and I don't really know if he's going to be 100% healthy come the season, and he's going to want to get paid. I mean, he's a great player. He's going to want to get paid, and when you have career stats like Earl Thomas has, he deserves to get paid. And I'm kind of ticked off that the Seahawks didn't want to pay him, but from what it looks like, the Seahawks don't like to pay their players who have actually been pretty successful for them, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas. But a career stats, 465 tackles, 69 pass breakups, 28 interceptions, and then 2 touchdowns. Like, Earl Thomas, I think, is one of the best free safeties that I've personally seen in my lifetime. So if he'd come over to the silver and black, I think it would be ultimately pretty interesting. But I want to know, how many Chucky heads would you give this rumor? Tuck rule, tuck that. That means 0 Chucky heads. 1, 2, 3. Believe it, baby. I want to know from you, how many Chucky heads Earl Thomas to the Raiders in 2019? My next Raider Nation rumor is from the Sports Podcast, and they got a Royals logo. Maybe that's because they love some Bo Jackson. I don't know. His rumor is coming in here, and it's the Raiders are going to sign Landon Collins in 2019. I'm going to give this one Chucky head, and I think that there's a small shred of truth. A lot of one Chucky heads today. So, he was a first-team All-Pro Bowl in 2016, and I think he's been the one glimmer of hope for the New York Giants defense this year. But he's going to require a large contract, and John Gruden has yet to prove to me that he really wants to pay anybody a lot of money. And he was one of my top free agent targets for the Raiders that I released last week. So if you want to go find that, type in Raiders top free agent targets. It's going to be the top one that shows up on YouTube. But Landon Collins, he's already out for the season. He's on the IR now with a shoulder injury. But before that, in 12 games, 96 tackles, 4 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery, or forced fumble. So Landon Collins is an absolute heavy hitter, and he's a fun player to watch. 0 interceptions, sure, but he's going to bring a lot of talent, and he's super young too. So I want to know from you. I talked about Landon Collins, and I talked about Earl Thomas, 2 really big name players who are going to be free agents in 2019. Would you rather the Raiders sign Collins, type C, or Thomas, type T? Okay? If you want to know what I think, DM me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365. But both those players, I think, would look really good in silver and black. Also, speaking of looking good, shout out to Mizzen+Main for making me look good. Shout out to them making my chest look chiseled. Stole that one from Harris. Buy them now at www.comfortable.af because these shirts are indeed comfortable as F. And if you're not a guy who likes dress shirts, you can get a lot more. You can get sweaters, which are really comfortable. Heck, just about anything. So shout out to Mizzen+Main. Next Raider Nation rumor, and it's from Raider Nation. And I put out a poll a few days ago about who's the greatest Raiders quarterback ever. We saw some votes come in, and I was I don't want to say pretty surprised, but I would have thought the number would have been a little bit higher. And is Ken Stabler the greatest Raiders quarterback ever? This one's 2 Chucky heads, and people are talking, and you're talking. So 58% of the votes came in, and they voted for Stabler. Now, Derek Carr got 18% of the votes, Plunkett got 14%, and Rich Gannon got 8% of the votes. But, I mean, he was a Super Bowl champion, and an NFL MVP was Ken Stabler. And then when you look at Ken Stabler's passing yard, like just how many passing yards he has, he's the Raiders' all-time passing yard leader, which may not stand for too much longer because I don't know if Derek Carr's going to catch him this year, but he's going to catch him. And then Rich Gannon sitting there at 3, and Darryl LaMonica. But there's going to be a common theme here in these graphics. Who's the all-time passing touchdown leader for the Oakland Raiders? Oh, shit, it's Ken Stabler. And then second place is Darryl LaMonica. Derek Carr's coming in there at 3, and then Rich Gannon. But, I mean, stats are great. Touchdowns are great. Yards are great. But at the end of the day, I think where our quarterbacks looked at? Wins. We look at wins for quarterbacks, and holy hell, would you look at that. Ken Stabler, number 1 in the Raiders for wins among quarterbacks. 69 wins, a good amount of wins there. Darryl LaMonica, 62 wins. Rich Gannon, 45. And then Jim Plunkett coming in last there at 38 wins. But, again, Ken Stabler, most wins, most yards, most touchdowns, which I think we can all agree are pretty important statistics for a quarterback. But I still want to know from you, who is the greatest quarterback all time for the Oakland Raiders? So I want you to comment below who's the greatest Raiders quarterback of all time, not just for Oakland. Who's the greatest Raiders quarterback of all time? If you want to know what I think, DM me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365.